So far we've talked about what is autism, when does it show up, how is it diagnosed, what are some therapies that you can do under the age of 3. But let's talk about what causes autism. And this one is the biggest controversy, and there really doesn't need to be this much controversy. So let's talk about what the evidence actually shows. And that is that autism is actually caused by genetics in up to 80% of cases. We have hundreds of genetic disorders that are associated with autism. Most of the genes associated with autism trigger a difference in neural development in prenatal, before the child is born, to immediately postnatal. They have to do with the way the gene is expressed during certain times, and they can be triggered more by environmental factors. So there's the 80% that have a known genetic disorder. The other 20% have a few other environmental factors that have been absolutely shown to be correlated. And that is short intervals between pregnancies, so less than 24 months, advanced age of the parents, including the mother and the father, prenatal taking of valproic acid, wildfires, which was an interesting one, which we can get into that one specifically, as well as preeclampsia, maternal infection. That's where the Tylenol link got labeled, was because infection and inflammation in pregnancy has been shown to be linked with autism. So there is no correlation between vaccination and that autism. It's been dispelled in so many different ways, but there's a reason this keeps coming up. So first of all, I want to tell you, the way researchers actually looked into vaccinations and autism was with a very open mind, because you have to remember, the first study that came out that showed there could be a link between the MMR vaccine and autism was largely believed by the medical community. It was put out in the Lancet. It looked to be a legitimate article, and it triggered a ton more research into vaccinations, specifically MMR and thimerosal. There have been several really good but differently done studies that have shown no link. Some of the studies even shown a protective mechanism with vaccinations in siblings who had autism and the children who didn't. So basically what we learned after studying millions of children is that there was no link between the vaccination and the autism. Why does this keep holding true for some families though? And that is because of the way that autism presents. So autism presents after the age of a year in most cases. Some parents will be able to tell you that they did notice subtle changes in their infant prior to diagnosis, but a lot of parents give the history of my child was developing typically until 12 to 18 months, and then their language started regressing. There's a few different reasons for this. We don't completely understand, so I'm not going to tell you that we do, but the reasons they think this happens is because language is in two different parts. Early language can look very similar in all developmental ages. This includes children who have low IQ, children who have brain injuries, and children who have autism. Early language is more of repeating back what someone says, and it's not associated with downloading information. Those synapses in someone with autism, they're not always able to do them. That doesn't start till after 12 months of age. So some parents do notice that their children regress after vaccinations, when it's not the vaccination itself, it's the developmental age. So initially, the MMR vaccine in the United States was given at 18 months. One of the reasons it was moved to 12 months was to try to avoid that time period of diagnosis for autism, but to not allow the child to be at risk. So they decreased it down to 12 months, yet the average age of diagnosis for autism stayed the same. So changing when it was given did not change when the child presented with symptoms. So I know this is a hot topic, and I take this I tread lightly with this topic because I never want to negate how someone feels about their own child's development, but we don't see that in the literature with millions of children. Yet what we have now is so many people afraid to give the MMR vaccination, and their children are going to be at risk for something that is proven, which is measles. And now we need to dispel this and put this to bed and start putting time and effort and research into the causes that we know are from autism and how can we help reduce those risks. We'll talk more about this in the future, and I'll link all of the articles in the captions.